Hey guys, thank you so much for joining into the fourth one. Till now, what we've seen, we believe that God exists, and we together are searching for God. And during a search, we found a book called the Bible, and we found out that it's written by many people. And you flip through the pages and you see through the authors, you look at it online, and you find that many people wrote it. You try to read it from cover to cover, and all across you find the same message that there is a God who loves you, a God who died for you, a God who came to save you, and you are inherently evil. Quite strange, quite rude, but across the whole books, 66 in all, you find the same message. And then you start digging into it and find that no institution wrote it, and started looking across saying, hey, are the stuff in the Bible, are they historically right? Or is it just a fairy tale? Is it just like Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn or the Macbeth? No. As you read it, you find out that there are a lot of things that connect to the history, and you know that as history progresses, more and more stuff comes in, and as we dig more and there are more archaeological discoveries, we find things being added in. And all the archaeology could do so far was prove it. We have King David being proved, we have other kings being proved, we have New Testament, massive evidence of Jesus and his disciples being proved across various lands, various nature, written by Jews and non-Jews and Greeks and Romans and Christians and non-Christians, confirming that there was a man named Jesus. He said he is God, and people believed that he existed, and he died and he was raised, and there were a group of people who believed he's God. Now, you want to know if there was some way that the book that you're reading is that exactly written by those who have written it, or was it something in between who messed up? All of us know this game of monkey whisper, where each person whispers something into someone's ears, and by the time it reaches the end, it's all messed up. And that's what most people accuse the Bible of having done. They said whatever the original message was has not come out in the today as it is. And that is why we do something called a manuscript examination, trying to figure out, is there something. For a long time, there were no Old Testament and New Testament. The Old Testament and New Testament somehow existed together with the 70 or the Septuagint, and that was early as AD 300, 500 AD, and the Vulgate, which is again a Latin part of the Bible, Latin Bible from AD 600 to 900 AD, and no one could date it because the Catholic Church had it. So, because the Catholic Church had it, and then Martin Luther translated and Martin Luther passed it on. So you had from the Catholic churches, you had the Lutheran sources, and from the Luthers, you had the Protestant sources, where you have Calvin and Zwingli and Tyndale and King James translated into modern English, and from there and other languages. And so for a huge long time, people said, Bible could be just something the church made up by after examining the history, and they made this entire thing up. Till one day, this happened in 49 or 45, somewhere during those region. There's a Bedouin boy dressed pretty much like this, taking care of a sheep. One of his sheep ran away. He went looking for the sheep, and he found a small circular opening. He threw a stone into it, and suddenly the stone broke something. So he dug it up, went in, and he called his friends, and they saw it. In it, there were in jars of clay several stuff, several writings of ancient article. You have 40 percentage of all those texts were Hebrew scriptures, stuff like Psalm and Ezekiel and Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Some of them were non-canonical books, where just talking about what the Jews did here and what were the rules and practices that was happening. And these suddenly brought a huge light into the whole matter. They're saying, wait, You mean to say that the books the Christians have, the Bible, or the Jews have, the Jewish Bible, is not made up? That is amazing. These things actually existed, and they were all dated, and they said, wow, they prove beyond and before even the churches existed, even before Jesus existed, that these writings were in place. Now let's play a game and you tell me from where the story is. I will read it out to you. So they packed a nice basket for little Ray. Then we have nothing. Till girl put on her red clock. Mother good I be wolf appear. What big E? Better to eat you, or better to eat you. And yeah, exactly. This is some little red herring hood. Next one. Build a straw hut. It will only take a went off in search of twigs and woe. Tit by my hair on my chinny. So which story is it from? Yeah, the three little pigs and the wolf. Last one is much smaller than all of them that we heard. This looked like they were made of chocolate. It lighted and made of green and red candies. Last word. Rattle, grab. If you're listening to it, it might be a little more harder, but those who can see it would understand that it's from Hansel and Gretel by the Grimm brothers. Obviously, it was written in German. It's more crude, but you get the point. We saw three stories: one Little Red Riding Hood, the Three Little Pigs, and Hansel and Gretel. I want you to keep that in mind because we're going to dwell on something. What is P52? So here's the game. Is it a new PlayStation? Is it a Bible verse? Is it an old fragment of the New Testament? Or fourth, is it a tax form? I don't think it's a tax form because I've seen P53 and P51. I'm not sure for P52. PlayStation will take a long time. We still don't have it. It's not a Bible verse, and it's not one of the books that came from the Qumran or the Dead Sea Scrolls that we saw earlier, which had Psalms. And this is a document that is dated, the oldest document of New Testament manuscript. It's called the Rylands Library Papyrus 52, or also known as St. John's Gospels fragment. Just like how we played the game of the Three Little Pigs and Red Riding Hood and Hansel and Gretel, the Papyrus Reynolds Greek 457 is a fragment of Papyrus Codex. It's a paper, tiny piece of paper, with 3.3 by 3.5 by 2.5 inches, almost 5 centimeter by 4 centimeter, for something of that sort at the best. It's conserved in glass, in a very like in a tiny glass in John Reynolds University Library in Manchester, and carbon dating and archaeological dating has dated it to 8200. Now we know that John wrote his book, the Gospel of John, before AD 90. So this is a copy of a copy that was there when it was 8200. Why is it important? This is the oldest copy of a New Testament. And how do we know that? So front and back there are Greek letters. And we put those letters and we could read this. In the front, the Jews for us. Anyone saw that the word okay signing die enter Irium pill and said use. That's a bit hard. Let's go to the second part. Second part. This I have been born, world, so that I would test of truth, said to him, and thus the Jews, no one. And when we put it along with the rest of the manuscript that or the Bible that we have today, we find the words matching very, very well, almost 100% as the original words. I mean, that the words have not even changed. It's not just the message not have not changed. Even the words have not changed. And both are from John chapter 18. One was in John chapter 18, 31 to 33, and the other was 37 to 38, written on both sides of the papyrus, saying that the manuscripts that we have historically and the manuscripts that we have through church, they have not been altered. No one messed it up. And that is not it. If the early document existed and we have correlated them, that means we have not lost the original message. And and there was no central authority responsible for changing or tweaking the message to their liking. That means if Jesus said marriage is honorable, it is honorable, and that's why the Christian church believes it so. Or if Jesus said, if you look at your neighbor's wife with lust, it is adultery. It is an adultery because we have not lost what Jesus said and meant then. And that means whatever the original authors meant is still what it means today. For example, we are going to look at some old documents and see when they were written, after how many years after the death of the author it was written, and how many copies do we have. We all believe Caesar existed. That's why we also say Caesarian comes from Caesar. We have coins of Caesar. And but the earliest copy of Caesar was written in AD 900. That's 1,000 years after Caesar died. That means 100, that's 10 centuries, or at least 10 generations. That means people would have no recollection of exactly how Caesar looked like by the time the earliest writing from him. And how many writings do we have? 10 of those. Plato was written 1,200 years after Plato lived, and 7 of those exist. Tacitus, Tacitus, 100 years later, we have 20. Homer, then the Iliad of Homer, the book of the story Homer wrote. We have that earliest writing 500 years after Homer died. So we can't even prove that it's Homer who wrote it, and we have 643. Now, the New Testament alone, in its purest manuscript, the earliest writings that we have is 125 AD, which is maximum about 25 to 50 years of the last books that were written. And from those collections, we have 24,000. But that's not it. We have 2 million copies of Greek New Testament manuscripts, 5,000 Greek New Testament, 2 million of pages, 5,000 full manuscripts, 3,000, 36,000 quotations, and 23,000 and more manuscripts in various other languages. So, what did we see today? The Bible is not a modern text. It has lots of sources in the past. And that means we have a lot of text that we can proofread and say, hey, no one has messed it up. It is originally preserved. The message has not been changed. The nature of the message has not been changed. What the authors wrote has been transmitted faithfully, including word for word at most cases. Content should mean the same. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen this meme. It says, so Zoom says to Facebook, FaceTime. hey, can I copy your homework, which is your icon? Okay, just do something, don't make it obvious. And he just turns a bit here on the top and bottom corner, and it's just the same icon, slightly different colored. And that is what people look at the Bible and say, hey, wait, don't you have the kings? The first king and second kings, and then you have the first chronicle and second chronicles, and they have the same stuff. Why are they copies? Or there's a meme that I saw online that says Matthew, Mark, and Luke, please see me after class. Your book reports are surprisingly similar. You're like, what? I mean, come on, you read up, you're like, wait, and they call the synoptic gospel for that because they're very similar. And but when you look a little more deep, you'll see Matthew writes is very detail oriented. In fact, the Chosen series tries to put that in that Matthew being someone who is meticulous in the way he writes a lot of numbers in it. Mark, if you read the gospel according to Mark, it's the smallest gospel, 16 chapters and all, so fast. It's just fast and what is just needed. Luke has a lot of women quoting in. We have a lot of eyewitness, and Luke also being a doctor, you would find a lot of medical understanding. He would say this person was lying down when he came in. This person was paralyzed from the hip down, or this person's right arm was withered. Not the entire arm, just their hand was withered. And if you read the Gospel of John, you would have statements like John is a beloved disciple of Jesus. We'll come to that. So Luke, this is how Luke writes it. Many have undertaken to draw an account of things that happen. You look, Luke is aware that there are many people who wanted to write about Jesus, and there are many people who have written it. And they were all handed down to us from who were the first were eyewitness. With this in mind, that means I knew the people writing about it, I knew their eyewitnesses. With this in mind, I myself have taken have carefully investigated everything from the beginning. I mean, I've decided to go and investigate, look through stuff and say, is there truth in it? And and because there were so many documents, I wanted to write for you, Theophilus, an orderly account of everything so that you would know everything that you've taught in a chronological in a manner in what happened. So I mean, it does not say that after the death of Christ suddenly you have a book, right? You have the next chapter saying the birth of Christ, because people would have written that saying how the death of Christ impacted was pre-shown in the birth of Christ. That it could have been possible. So Luke wants to make sure that the context, the author, the timeline, the people whose reports come are valid and valuable, and not random and random stuff comes into his writing. So he is aware that many people are writing. So the reason is this: why do we have similar books? Why do we have in the Old Testament and the New Testament, why do we have similar writings? It's because they were all different perspectives of people who saw the same thing. Imagine this: if your dad told you to go fill um, water the plants, and you and your brother heard it, and your brother was in a grumpy mood because your dad told him not to watch any more TV, your brother would report it saying that my father forced me to fill water, and you would, if you are someone who loves planting, my father encouraged me to water the plants. Same stuff, different perspective. There's a woman named Lydia McGrew. She is Dr. Lydia McGrew has written an amazing book called Hidden in Plain View. He talks about one of the examples that she presents says Herod has a private party, and the next thing that you knew that John was killed. Now, as a normal Jew living in the you knew these two things probably has happened because you saw the hustle and bustle near Herod, then you saw his servants buying stuff. There were officials, and you would see soldiers buying stuff or walking with those servants with lots of stuff. So you realize it's a private party happening. And a few days later, John, who was present by Herod, was also killed, and the body was taken by his disciples, and that's all. But the Bible says um, about Herod was dancing, and John's head was asked to be put on a plate. And you're like, you wonder Wait, how do these Jews know what is actually happening in a private place? And Lydia McGrew talks about it in a strange way. She says, look at Luke 8:23. It's a whole different context. It's not talking about John at all. It's talking about normal disciples of Jesus. So certain women who have been healed of evil spirits and infirmities, Mary called Magdalene, out of whom seven demons came out, and John, a wife of Chusa, the hero stewardess, and Susanna, and many others provided for Jesus from their substance. I mean, whatever they had, they gave to Jesus. And it's just an encouraging portion. But if you read it again, you realize in between there's a woman named Joanna, the wife of Chusa, who was Herod's steward. So he was responsible. Chusa was responsible for the plates. And Chusa was responsible when the servants came to him and said, um, their daughter wants a plate to be taken down to the dungeons. And they would have killed John and put his head on his plate and brought it back and showed Herod, and Herod would have given it to Herodas or to his daughter and then to Herodas, who would have sent the plate back to the stewardess, who would have the mess of his life cleaning it up. And then, with deep pain in heart, would have to come back to his wife and tell her that her masters or her rabbis or her teacher's cousin had been killed, and he was responsible for that. And Lydia says, hey, Bible was not trying to make things up. It did not want to prove to everyone it's right. It's just a written record of everything that is. Bible is not a single text. It's not just Control C, Control V. It's not copy paste it. They're different perspectives on the same thing. The eyewitness reports go, and the things were tried to put in the way they happened. Imagine this. Just one more. And be done with it. Imagine if I ask you to draw a picture, my mom would draw a picture with a lot of flowers. If I asked her to draw a picture of a garden, my friend Kevin would draw big tulips because he loves tulips, and a very tiny person because they're a bit short. And my point being, you would find the Bible authors also doing the same thing. John says, the disciple whom Jesus loved. And or in John 20, he says, when the resurrection of Jesus Christ, John, he said, John and Peter ran to the tomb, but John, who loved Jesus, ran faster than Peter and reached the tomb first. And you're like, wait, what? It's the nature of John. I mean, he likes to put himself also into the picture and talk about himself in the third person. It's not that John was trying to prove a created religion. He was trying to write a record of what happened. And he probably got lost in his understanding how to put himself, where to put himself. I mean, he was not lying about it, but we would say he was not more honest about it. But anyhow, what we saw till then is that believe God exists. We were searching for God, and in between of all that, we found this Bible, and we found it written by many people, and they speak same manner that there's a loving God, and we've been proven, but through all of this, that no institution wrote it. His history is verifiable. Archaeology confirms history. There was a man named Jesus. He said he was God. He was crucified and he was raised to life, and he was believed to be God by many people. The Old Testament was not changed. We saw that through the Dead Sea Scrolls. That means that what the people now we have is the same thing the people then had. The New Testament was not changed because we see a huge evidence of manuscripts from all over the places coming in and verifying it. Full books, half book, torn pages, tiny bits of pages. And they were not written as legends trying to bring and praise other people, but there's only one person who actually got praise in the entire Bible, and that's Jesus. but they were written with different perspective. And we come into this great question saying, what now? We know that it's all true. Now the next topic that we could do is it more than a good book? Is it supernatural? If God is outside time, then won't he try to show who he is by telling things to happen? And is this the real stuff? And I wish that you would take time to dwell in and think about these things. God bless you all.